All right, hi everyone. We are going to solve and graph some inequalities. So when we're talking about inequalities, we are going to start out the same that we did equations. I'm just going to have you draw a line where the inequality sign is. And we're only going to learn one thing today. So let me go ahead and start. We're going to treat this just like it's a two-step inequality, so it will be the same as an equation. So I see I have a term here and a term here, but the x is on this term, so I'd like to get rid of the positive 5, and I'll do that by subtracting a negative 5 from both sides. So we have 2x is greater than 40. And then the opposite of multiplying by 2 will be dividing by 2. So that leaves us with x is greater than 20. Now to graph this, all I want you to do is just make a quick little number line. You just need to put the 20 on the number line. And you can look at this like it's the arrow at the end. You can see how the line would go this way, so it is pointing to the right. So we're just going to color in that arrow. And this says x is greater than 20, but it does not equal 20. So we have an open circle. That means the numbers will be all the way up to 20, but it will not include 20. Okay, so open circle if it doesn't include it. Later on we'll color some in when we have an equal to sign. So you have greater than and equal to. We'll color that in. It'll be solid. That means it does include the number. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this next one. So once again, we just have to go ahead and get rid of the 4 by subtracting 4. So it's just going to be a two-step equation again. We have then left negative x over 5 is greater than or equal to negative 3. And it actually is a two-step equation. However, I'm going to make it 3 steps because I'm going to break this next one into 2 different steps. I'm going to get rid of the 5 but not the negative quite yet because I want to show you what happens with a negative. So multiply this by 5, multiply this side by 5, and we will end up with negative x is greater than or equal to negative 15. Now to get rid of the negative on the x, since we want it by ourselves, we're either going to divide by a negative 1 or multiply by a negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by a negative, and that's a negative 1. I just tend to put the negative underneath. And I'll do the same to this side. So a negative and a negative will give us the end result of a positive x. And this is going to be a 15. But whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, so this is our big thing today, what happens is we have to switch the sign. So it was greater than, now it's going to be less than or equal to, and that will be our final answer. So when we go ahead and graph that, once again, we just need to have the 15. It's going to include the 15 because we have the equal sign, so we're going to color in our circle to say that it's included, and it looks like we have the end cap here pointing to the left. So we'll color in the left side, and that makes sense, right? Because x has to be less than or equal to 15. So, all right, now let me explain a little bit about why this has to flip. Because it's not like we're just making up a rule for no reason. Let me get another piece of paper here. Let me give you an example that we can see a little bit better. If we have 7 is greater than 2, which we all know is true. Now we're just going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 3. Okay, so now we have 21 is greater than 6. All good, right? That's true. Well, let's do 7 is greater than 2, only this time let's multiply both sides by a negative 3. So now we have negative 21, and 2 times 3 is 6, a negative 6. But is 21 greater than negative 6? It's not. So in order to make this a true statement, we would have to flip the sign. So you can see the numbers got larger when we multiplied, but now we have more negatives. So you have to remember, whenever you multiply or divide, by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. I'll show you one with a division also so you can just see that. So let's say we have 6 is greater than 4. If we divide that by 2, both sides, we have 6 is greater than 2. All works. Now if we have a negative on the bottom, this will be a -3 and a -2. Well, -3 is not larger than -2, so to make it a true statement, we have to flip the sign. So why don't you go ahead and write that down. So when multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. All right. So here we have another one to do. Draw that line. Looks like a two-step equation, and I notice that there is a negative on the coefficient of the x, which means we're going to have to flip that sign at some point. So subtract 8 from both sides. We have -3x is greater than -12. Divide by a -3, and since we divided by a -3, we have to flip the sign. So that will be x, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, so to graph it, just write our 4. It is less than 4, but it does not equal 4. So that's an open circle, and it's anything less than 4, because this looks just like this, right? So there we go. All right, and last one. So remember, this is a grouping on the top, so we're going to move our 8 first. So multiply both sides by 8. And we have x plus 7 left, because 8 divided by 8, remember, is just 1. And then we have -16 on this side. All right, the only thing left to do is subtract 7 from both sides. We don't flip the sign when we add or subtract, right? That's only when it is multiplying and dividing by a negative number. So we have x is greater than or equal to -23. All right, so let me graph that. We have our -23, and it can equal 23, so that's a solid dot. And it's going to be everything to the right. It's going to be larger than -23. All right, see you in the next video.